Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley is trying to clean up her response after being asked about the cause of the Civil War. This was during a New Hampshire campaign event on Wednesday night. Here's what she said.
What was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? I'm sorry?
I'm not running for president. I wanted to see your view on the cause of the Civil War.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way.
Thank you. And in the year 2023, it's astonishingly neat, and you answer that question without mentioning the word slavery.
What do you want me to say about slavery? Next question.
All right, now here's Haley trying to clean up what she didn't say.
About the Civil War and what I think of the Civil War, what was the cause of the Civil War. Of course, the Civil War was about slavery. We know that. That's unquestioned, always the case. We know the Civil War was about slavery. But it was also more than that. It was about the freedoms of every individual. It was about the role of government. For 80 years, America had the decision and the moral question of whether slavery was a good thing and whether government, economically, culturally, any other reasons, had a role to play in that. By the grace of God, we did the right thing, and slavery is no more. But the lessons of what that bigger issue with the Civil War are is that let's not forget what came out of that, which is government's role, individual liberties, freedom for every single person, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do and be anything you want to be without anyone or government getting in your way. That should be the goal of what we always try and take away from that, right? Because we never want to return back to that place. But we always want to remember the lesson of what it means to be a free individual and that everyone deserves to be a free individual. So we stand by that. I say that as a Southerner. I say that as a Southern governor who removed the Confederate flag off the State House grounds. And I say that as a proud American of how far we have come.
Today, she is alleging without evidence that the questioner was potentially a Democratic plant. All right, Dr. Carr, I'm going to start with you. What say you about her initial statement and then her cleanup?
I love Nikki Haley.
It gives you so much fodder, right? That's why you love her.
Seriously, I love Nimrata Randhawa, her maiden name. I love Nimrata, whose father, Anjit, taught for almost 30 years at Voorhees College in South Carolina at HBCU. I love Nimrata because Nimrata is, one thing about her, she's honest. When you look at, I think Shakespeare called it in Julius Caesar, the lean and hungry look. Look at her face. This is a woman this is a person whose ambition knows no bounds. One of the reasons I really love her is because she is indeed the face of naked political calculation. She says, I'm the governor who took down the Confederate flag. No. You should give that credit where it belongs, to the martyrs at Mother Emanuel, to Senator Clementa Pinckney, who was murdered along with the others there by the white nationalists, who is still alive as the cops took him to get some fast food meal before they put him in jail. And I won't even mention his name. But if you go back to 2015, Anybody, you go on C-SPAN and watch the all-night debate that was had in the South Carolina legislature. Some of the most remarkable speeches and debates that I've ever seen in a legislature. The black women and men of the South Carolina legislature who took it to those hillbillies and got that flag down. Nimrata got a lot of political capital out of that. Reverend E.X. Slave was the nickname of the brother who for years took a step ladder, and tried to take down that Confederate flag, and failing that, tried to set it on fire. Shout out to the people in Columbia, South Carolina, people like my friend Bernie Gallman and Jerome and a lot of the brothers and sisters out there who remember this brother. And also to our young sister who climbed the pole and took that flag down, finally got it down, and the next in the tradition. So Nimrata gets a lot of credit, but she has never finally shrunk from taking credit for other people's deeds. And that damn Confederate flag, she's wrapped herself in taking that flag down. But one of the reasons finally I love her is that she, in the face of naked ambition, makes it very clear that white nationalism comes in many colors. Nikki Haley is a white nationalist. And whether it be Taman Clare for something Bree Newsom triggered, or for something that Roof triggered when he massacred the Charleston Africans there, she understands that in South Carolina, it's the war between the states. In South Carolina, as in Tennessee and Georgia and Mississippi, it is the war of northern aggression. That the daughters of the daughters of Confederacy fought a textbook war from around 1900 to about 1940 to make sure that the textbooks taught that. And when her family came here, even though they lived off the money paid to them by black people at a HBCU, that ain't stopped their daughter from saying, I fully embrace white nationalism too. We must roll over Nikki Haley like the sea, because she can't be redeemed. She can't be reformed. She must be removed politically.
So this was no surprise, right, for you. Lauren, I am wondering, she fell down. Did she get back up by trying to redeem herself?
Not really. I'm not really completely sure that she's a white nationalist. I really think she's sort of a dummy and an airhead at the end of the day. I don't really think it's that complex. I think she was trying to pander to the Trump voters. And when you're trying to pander to the Trump voters, you ultimately have to be lying. And so I actually am confused. Her follow-up tells me that she may actually not know the true history of the South. I mean, you do want to believe that she does know the history and she's smart enough to dodge it in that particular setting. But I'm not sure about that, because there's a lot of people who are taught a bunch of nonsense when it comes to the Civil War in the United States. And she may be one of those people, even though her father was an educator, because he may have been teaching a bunch of nonsense as well. Who knows, right? Because this is the United States where we dodge these questions. To repeat what Dr. Carr said, this was the woman that was standing by the Confederate flag until 9 black people were murdered at Mother Emanuel, and then suddenly had a conversion. And that's why the conversion happened, because 9 people were murdered at a Bible. 9 black people were murdered by a white supremacist at a Bible study. That's what it took to wake Nikki Haley up, right? And so this is what you see when you get people who are afraid to speak the truth and truth to power, which we are not in a truth to power era. We're in a mob rule era right now in American history. And the truth to power era would dictate that you would tell people things they don't want to hear, sort of in the style that John McCain did when the woman got up at his event and called Barack Obama something negative, and he stops the event and corrects her. We don't live in that era anymore. So she's trying to pander to the MAGA right, to Trump's voters. And again, I'm not really completely sure that she knows what she's talking about, because the initial statement and then the follow-up sounds particularly ignorant. I mean, I would like to believe that she was smart enough to be politically tactical, but I'm not too sure about that.
I think it's very interesting, too, Lauren, that they fed her the information and said, what about slavery? And she said, well, what about slavery? And also had the time to Google or have somebody who was an assistant of hers give her some information before she made that second statement. Dr. Carr, do you think that this is something that's indicative of how she will go about in terms of her campaign, in terms of what you feel about her and what she is doing right now in this moment? Because she certainly is surging at the polls.
Yeah, see, that's tough. I don't know. And this is a very interesting conversation. Her parents ran a business in Black community in South Carolina as well. I'm not sure. Now, if you take them out of the United States and take them to India, then you're going to get a conversation about caste, about the Dalits, about the untouchables. And let's be very clear about this. These are not Black Indians. I'm talking about the Indian subcontinent. So there's a conversation of race that's global as it relates to this. I'm not sure that she can course correct. I agree with you, Lauren. She's not particularly bright. She's certainly not astute politically. But I do think, given that she was born and raised in South Carolina, given that she has been in politics in South Carolina for an appreciable amount of time, that this isn't naivete. If I had to speculate, I would speculate that the person that asked me that question wasn't with the White Nationalist Party, wasn't with the Republican Party, could have been a plant. But that is exactly the point, because if you're from the South, or if you know anything about this conversation, you know that they call it the War of Northern Aggression, the war between the states. So the response to what the cause of the Civil War is, the correct response politically, is to say that it's about states' rights. She was not wrong there, but in trying to square the circle, what began to be revealed is that she can never be ready for prime time in a country where she is using race as the center of her political appeal. I don't think that she doesn't know South Carolina history. You can't live in South Carolina, quite frankly, and not that language. I think that doesn't play on the road as DeSantis is finding out. So I think her presidential ambition is dead in the water, but we're going to unfortunately have to smell it until it's finally over. And that's just the stench that, we're just going to tolerate.
And you're right. When it comes to the Civil War, they fought to try to determine whether or not the states had the right to do what they could have done in terms of slaves and the economy, and whether or not it should exist or not. But it seems like she just didn't want to say the word slavery, right? It's like she danced all around it. Now, Lauren, I'll piggyback off of Dr. Carr. What do you think about her saying this could have been a plant?
Who cares if it was a plan or not? Your answer would remain the same whether it was a plan or not if you have a brain in your head. It doesn't matter whether the person is a plan. What matters is what you say. Doesn't matter what everybody else is saying. You're trying to project yourself as a leader, as somebody who wants to be the president of the United States. So who cares, whether or not it was a plan? The fact that she's surging against a guy who was quoting Adolf Hitler the other week and another guy who's trying to dismantle Black history in Florida is an embarrassment in itself, because in this group, Chris Christie actually looks like a profile in courage, because her entire MO is to try to avoid, to avoid pissing off Trump's voters. That's what this game is. And so you're always going to look ridiculous because, of course, there is no way to win that game unless you go full on against Donald Trump, which is what Christie is doing. Now, he's not winning. Who knows what would happen if she at least had the guts to stand up against Donald Trump in full. But, she's not brave enough for that. There's not enough courage there for that. She's trying to do this dance and play this game. And that is why you got this ridiculous answer that is insanely embarrassing. I have no idea why these people think that, there's not a video rolling or something like that. I mean, she looks ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
A new year for a new you. Curl Prep Natural Hair Solutions at curlprep.com is an amazing organic line for curls, locks, braids, twists, and even those wigs and extensions. Women, men, and children are loving this line. Look at this video and you be the judge. People line up to see this product in action at hair shows, and when they take a seat and try it, they don't believe it's their hair. Buy the products at curlprep.com. It works on all hair types. Use code ROLAND, that's ROLAND, lowercase letters, to get a 15% discount. Parents, remove the ouch. You will love this system because you can comb the product through your child's hair with your fingers. Seasoned saints are loving the product. It's all at curlprep.com. Use code ROLAND, lowercase letters, to get a 15% discount. You won't believe it's your hair.